Hey everybody, welcome back to Between the 20s. We're doing our weekly start-sit post and our start-sit videos here, where we got questions from you all, the listeners, to see who they should start and sit in fantasy football this week. As always, I'm Bryce, joined by Amer and Mike. Guys, how you doing?
Go ahead, Mike.
I am very good. Giants playing the Cardinals this week. Have a chance to get back on the horse after losing to the Pats on Thursday night last week. I'm excited as a Giants fan heading into Week 7.
One game back.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Looking forward to Week 7. As Mike said, Thursday Night Football tonight. Big game, Kansas City at Denver, so we'll see.
Also, before we continue, I just want to point out that Week 6, I was the expert. 5-0 across all my 5 leagues. It was a good week for me. Who are you trusting if you believe in the hot hand?
Not Mike.
Me, the one on the left side of your screen. Tune in and be ready, because I'm about to go 5-0 for a second straight week.
Sure. All right, sure. I've seen some of his fantasy teams. He's not at all. I don't know how he did it. But
let's get into it.
Nevertheless, for those of you who don't know how this works, we got listeners submitted questions. They give us number of teams, scoring, and then players that they're looking for to fill a certain position. Sometimes we have pick twos. We have a couple of those this week. So we're going to do, I'll detail the questions, flip it out to Mike and Amer, and we'll talk about our takes here. And without further ado, let's get going. So the first one comes from a 12-team PPR looking for wide receiver 2 help this week. 2 guys, DK Metcalf versus Baltimore, or Allen Robinson coming off the bye against New Orleans. Amer, I know we were talking about this a little bit before. What are you thinking?
Yeah, looks like a bye week's hit this guy hard. This is a tough decision between DK Metcalf, Allen Robinson. Neither of them are really great options, I think, this week. Allen Robinson is playing New Orleans, so he'll get the shadow from Marshawn Lattimore, which is tough. And, of course, DK Metcalf, one of the more boomer bust guys in fantasy this year. But for me, since this is a PPR league, I'm going to roll with Allen Robinson. He's got the higher likelihood to get more targets, more receptions. So DK Metcalf, I'm sorry, but Allen Robinson, you're my guy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I'm going to go DK Metcalf. I feel like Metcalf is obviously a big end zone threat. And I checked every time he's been in the end zone, he scored over 10 points. I think that they're going to have a good chance of getting in the end zone against this Ravens team. I'm a little scary of Allen Robinson going up against the Saints defense. I think that defense is very good, very underrated, but I'm going to go Metcalf here.
So I guess I'm the deciding vote.
Yeah.
And I am going with Amer. Question, guys. Allen Robinson has gotten 7 targets or more every single week. How many weeks has DK Metcalf gotten 7 or more targets?
0.
1.
Psych!
Oh, damn. Almost.
Led him astray. But DK Metcalf has only seen 7 targets once. It's PPR. I'm a fan of volume. Allen Robinson is the number 1 target in Chicago. Had a decent game against Minnesota, which is another very good defense, so he can deal with guys like Marshawn Lattimore. Yes, he has the quarterback issues with Chase Daniel, but who's the other guy?
Mitch Trubisky. He's better.
Yeah, Mitch Trubisky. He played well enough with him. And Russell Wilson spreads the ball around too much. A-Rob is the number 1 in his offense. DK Metcalf is 2 or 3, depending on how you do with Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson.
Yep.
I agree with Amer. Going to go Allen Robinson with this one. Great. Now we have our second question. So go from 12 teams. Now we're going all the way down to 8 teams. 8-team, half PPR, our first pick 2. Matt Breida, the running back for the Niners against Washington. Michael Gallup, favorable matchup for Dallas this week against Philadelphia. Robert Woods against Atlanta, which should be a shootout. And finally, Will Fuller, the darling of fantasy owners from 2 weeks ago against Indianapolis. Mike, we'll kick it to you this time.
It's tough. I think the number 1 here for me is clear, at least. We're going to go Robert Woods going against Atlanta. I think Atlanta really doesn't have the best defense. Robert Woods is a top target on the Rams. I know he's going to probably share that role with Cooper Kupp, but I like Woods this week against the Falcons. That game is probably going to be a bit of a shootout, even though the Rams just acquired a top-tier corner, Jalen Ramsey, this week. But I do expect still that game to be a bit high-scoring. You do have Matt Ryan and the Falcons, after all. Matt Ryan can slice up a defense like everybody knows. The second choice here is a little bit tougher. I'm going to go Will Fuller against the Colts.
Whoa.
I feel that Will Fuller is going to have a good week. I own Deshaun Watson, currently the 2nd-ranked fantasy quarterback, and I think Will Fuller will benefit from that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
These are some hot takes coming from Michael Venner today.
So, Mike, I guess I'll agree with you on the first one. Robert Woods, 100%. Atlanta's shown to be a really poor defense. Kyler Murray in Atlanta to put up 34 on them, so it looks like no problem for the Rams this week. I think they'll have a good day on offense. So Robert Woods is clear for me, but I'm going to disagree with you. I think not Will Fuller. I think Michael Gallup's the guy from this choice. Matt Breida would actually be my third, so Will Fuller is my last in this case. But in terms of going back to Michael Gallup, he's got the best matchup in football you want for an outside wide receiver against Philadelphia. Everyone saw what Stephon Diggs did last week against this Philadelphia defense. No Amari Cooper in this game. Most likely he's coming back from a thigh injury picked up in the last game. He missed the rest of the last game, so I'm not too sure we're going to see Amari Cooper this week, which makes Michael Gallup the number one target in Dallas. They're going to have to throw to stay in this game against that terrible Philadelphia defense. I'm all about Michael Gallup this week. I want everything I can get from him.
Yep. Before diving into it, Amr mentioned injuries. There have been some injury news this week, or has been some injury news this week. For our takes on that, there's some quick hitters coming out. Some short videos tell you what to do, so please check those out as well. It should give you some advice if you're looking for fantasy help with some injuries.
Yep.
But once again, I'm siding with Amr. Not only am I siding with him, it is an identical ranking. I also have Will Fuller coming in last. For me, Michael Gallup was number one. I'm just so unbelievably pleased with what Stephon Diggs did last week, torching the Philly secondary. You mentioned it. Amari Cooper is most likely going to be out. Michael Gallup's the number one. This, I think, is going to be relatively a shootout. Dallas doesn't have the greatest defense, and I think they're going to force Kirk Cousins to throw because their front four is decent. But on the other side of the ball, the Viking defense is obviously stellar against both the run and the pass, and the Cowboys are going to have to pass at some point. Michael Gallup's going to be the beneficiary of that. My second one is Robert Woods. Agree with what both of you guys have said. Shootout game. Not much more I can add other than he's probably behind Cooper Kupp right now in terms of options in that offense, but he still provides a lot of versatility playing both the outside and the slot. But I agree with Amr too. If you would prefer to go with the running back, Breida is my third. My only concern there is just share. Tevin Coleman. Yes, Matt Breida has been more efficient, but Tevin Coleman has both outsnapped and outrushed Matt Breida this year.
Yeah, I mean, since he came back, Tevin Coleman has been the guy. He's got more touches in the first game he came back, even though he was coming off that high ankle sprain. First game back, they had him a full go. And, of course, last week against the Rams, more touches, and he did get in the end zone. So it looks like Tevin Coleman is the guy you want in San Francisco, but Matt Breida is not a terrible option if you need running backs.
Neither one of you are concerned about the fact that Dallas just got shut down by the New York Jets last week?
They still put up decent numbers last week. They ended up with 16, 20 points. It was a slow start, but they
22
still
points,
fine.
yeah.
22
They
points.
scored 22 last week.
They still end up looking fine. It's really more a matter of, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, Amir, but opportunity. With Amari
Agreed.
Cooper out, I want to have the Dallas number one receiver.
Yep, especially against Philadelphia.
Especially against Philadelphia.
Fair
Great.
enough.
Yeah.
So, quick disclaimer before the next two questions. The next two both involve guys playing in the Thursday night game. So the first question is a guy from Denver. Second question is a guy from Kansas City. Full disclosure, we are recording this on Thursday, even though it's going to be sent out on YouTube on Friday. So this is a completely neutral take. No results biasing us here, even though the game will be played when you watch this. But for anyone that does send in questions with Thursday night games, we'll talk about them to give you the full analysis after the fact. But both of our viewers that submitted these questions, we gave you guys our takes last night, so that way you could have an informed decision. So if you do submit us with Thursday night games, just know that we'll give you the total analysis after the fact, but we will give you the guys that we think we should go with the night before so you can make an informed decision. That's just a little disclaimer so everybody knows how this is going to work. But the first question, 10-team PPR flex, guy that we talked about a lot. This is the Denver guy, Cortland Sutton against Kansas City, which should be an entertaining game tonight. Or Marvin Jones versus Minnesota, a guy that's now been relegated to the number 2 spot in Detroit against a solid defense. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, this is a very easy choice for me. I'm going to go Cortland Sutton playing against Kansas City this week. Kansas City doesn't have a very good defense. They struggled in the last 2 games. And I also feel that Sutton is really on the rise. He's basically become a top 2 wide receiver in most leagues, and even in a 10-team league. So you're very pleased to plug in Sutton at your flex, I'd say, over Marvin Jones, going up against that tough Minnesota defense.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about Cortland Sutton a little bit last week. He had a down week last week, but he was still solid, got the yards. He didn't get in the end zone, but I think that's going to change this week. Of course, Kansas City's defense is brutal, one of the worst in the NFL. So if Denver's going to score, it's going to be through Phillip Lindsay, who is a good play this week, and, of course, Cortland Sutton through the air. So if you got Cortland Sutton, I say play him. Definitely over Marvin Jones. As we saw in Monday night's game against the Packers, Marvin Jones is definitely second, maybe third option if you want to count T.J. Hawkinson above him in this Lions system. And the Lions seem to be more of a run-heavy team this year with Kerryon Johnson, so look for that. I think Cortland Sutton's your guy this week.
And we have a trifecta. I also will say Cortland Sutton. For me, again, we know that this guy's going to get 6 or 7 targets at a minimum. Marvin Jones has been a little more variable. He's playing against a great secondary. Kenny Golladay is the number 1 in that offense. I view Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders more as a 1A, 1B, as opposed to a clear number 2 in Marvin Jones, going up against a tough defense. So even on the short week, I'll go Cortland Sutton as well. All right.
That was good.
Next one, another Thursday nighter that we talked about, 18 PPR flex spot. We got 4 guys here on the docket. The Thursday nighter is LaShawn McCoy for the Kansas City Chiefs against Denver. Michael Gallup, who we just talked about 2 questions ago against Philly. Kenyon Drake against Buffalo. Or Derrick Henry against the Chargers. Amir, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I guess just to go down the line, starting with LaShawn McCoy, look, he could be great this week. He's a boomer bust guy, I think, which is weird to say about a running back, especially in the Kansas City offense. But past 2 weeks have been really different stories. 2 weeks ago, we saw a lot of Damian Williams coming off that injury. He took almost 90% of the running back snaps. But then last week, it was the LaShawn McCoy show. So not too sure what we're going to see here in the Kansas City backfield. So I'm going to stay away from that for a little bit. And my pick here would be Derrick Henry. Obviously, he's been great so far this season. I think he's a top 10 running back so far on points for fantasy so far. And he's playing a really good matchup. The Chargers have shown to be really bad, honestly, against the run this year. As you saw last week, James Conner really took him to church pretty much. He had a great week, and so we'll see Derrick Henry do the same thing. I think play Derrick Henry. Although we did say Michael Gallup would have a good week against Philadelphia, I think Derrick Henry's a safer play, more touches, and against a bad defense, I think he's your guy.
It was Sunday, so it's pretty good they took him to church.
Yeah.
But I'm going to agree. I think Derrick Henry is the play here. My rule of thumb is always, if you have a starting running back that has been pretty consistent, you always got to think about them in their flex play before anybody else. Unless you have a really intriguing wide receiver option, like a clear wide receiver 1 there, because the running back's just going to get touches no matter what. At least at the start of the game script may dictate they get more or less touches down the road. But I definitely think that you got to go with that top tier running back. And Derrick Henry is certainly in the top, I'd say, top 15 running backs in fantasy at this point. Yep. So I'm going to agree with Derrick Henry there. That's really all I have to say. I agree with you that LaShawn McCoy would kind of be the person I would maybe think about. LaShawn McCoy and Michael Gallup are definitely the 2 guys I would think about playing next, but I agree that McCoy, you have that kind of variable as to how many touches he's going to get. He's not that clear number 1 running back. And Michael Gallup, same deal, but it's just that's kind of the running back versus wide receiver play that you have there. You put a wide receiver, probably a little higher risk, but a little higher reward, but Derrick Henry is definitely the safe play for you at this flex position. And I think his ceiling is probably even equal to Michael Gallup's ceiling, so you don't lose all that much there.
Definitely. Quick note for this listener who submitted this question. As you can tell, we haven't talked a lot about Kenyon Drake. We have talked about him before. Kenyon Drake is already losing touches to both Mark Walton, the undrafted rookie who just got off the practice squad, and Kalen Ballage, who's probably a worse runner, but they're still giving him touches anyway. Kenyon Drake should not be rostered. You can definitely drop him. There's a reason we're not talking about him
100%.
Right now.
Agreed.
But I know he's Michael's guy.
Unless you're in a deep league.
Unless you're in a deep league.
Anyone on Miami's not worth having.
This is an 18 league, so you might, I think at this point you might want to part with Kenyon Drake. So use on your waiver wire. Hit us up with questions.
Yeah, definitely. But I think we have a consensus here that you can let him go.
100%.
For once again, another trifecta, we'll be going Derrick Henry. I've talked about this a lot on previous shows. If you have a running back, go running back in the flex. Guaranteed touches. I asked this question before about Allen Robinson with 7 targets, but I'm just going to state it this time. Derrick Henry has never had fewer than 15 rushing attempts. Last week, he had 15 rushing attempts, so tying a season low. I wouldn't expect that to continue. And actually, somewhat counterintuitively, I like that Derrick Henry had a really bad week last week. It almost humbles the Titan offense. The Titans looked very bad last week in general. Mariota was benched for Ryan Tannehill. But Derrick Henry was super inefficient, going 15 for just 28 yards. Last time he had 15 rushes, he put up 82 yards and a touchdown. I'll definitely go Derrick Henry here. I think he's due for a bigger game. Last time he touched 100 yards was week 4 in Atlanta, so I think he's due for a big one. Definitely go Derrick Henry here in your flex.
Get humbled.
Sounds good, yeah. Let's move on, please.
12-team PPR, our second pick 2. So here we're looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the banged-up Green Bay receiving core against Oakland. Golden Tate versus Arizona for the Giants. And then Carlos Hyde, the high-volume running back for Houston against Indianapolis. Mike, we'll start with you. Pick 2 here.
Yeah, if you want my thoughts on Carlos Hyde, go back to the last show. He's definitely my first option out of these 3. Once again, he's just a rusher that is going to get you consistent points. He's consistently around that 10-point range, and that's what you want when you kind of have these who should I start, who should I sit questions. You want that guy with a very high floor. Granted, relatively low ceiling, but I still like Carlos Hyde. After that, this question gets a little bit tougher, and it kind of comes down to personal preference. I'd say you have MVS, whose Packers are going up against the Raiders, or Golden Tate, whose Giants are going up against the Cardinals. It's really, really a tough decision here. I'm going to go with Golden Tate, who's, like I said, his Giants going up against the Cardinals. I feel like that game's going to be a little bit high scoring. The Giants' defense is awful. I don't really think the Cardinals' defense is all that great. And if Sterling Shepard does play, he's going to be covered by Patrick Peterson, which opens Golden Tate a little bit more in that offense, not being covered by the number 1 corner. So I liked Golden Tate there.
So Mike going full homer on that one with his Giants.
Yes.
Hey, personal bias. Everyone's got it. It's cool. So I'm going to agree with you with the first one.
It's not
Carlos
right
Hyde.
if it's bias. He's not biased if it's right.
Okay.
It's true.
What did you say?
Science.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I'm going to get back to Carlos Hyde. I think he's the number 1 guy for me on this trio. I think he's going to get a good amount of touches. I think Houston's going to be up in this game. Indy's going to have to come back a little bit. So I think Carlos Hyde is going to have some positive game script. He's going to get a lot of touches. And, of course, on this high-powered offense, he's always got a chance for a touchdown.
It's going to be a high-powered offense this week.
And for my second guy, I'm actually going to go with MVS. I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is a better option this week. He's going to be the second option with Devontae Adams coming back. But Geronimo Allison got hurt. He got an arm and head injury in that Monday night game against the Lions. So I think MVS is going to be the number 2. And just for Golden Tate, I think with Saquon Barkley healthy coming back, along with Evan Ingram coming back, I think that'll take away a lot of his touches and his receptions. So not too high on Golden Tate, although it is a good matchup. I'm leaning towards MVS this week.
So for the first time on this show, I'm going to go with Mike here.
Homers.
But I agree with both of you guys. Carlos Hyde, fun fact. Carlos Hyde is, as we all know, very lackluster in the passing game, but still in full PPR, the 23rd ranked running back in football. So he's that low-end running back too, even though he's getting significantly less volume in the passing game than most other guys. Speaks to his efficiency on the ground. I expect that to continue for Houston. He's the guy, not Duke Johnson. Go with him. And then the other one, I am going to go Golden Tate for 2 reasons. One, you already mentioned that Devontae Adams is coming back. He's going to be a huge target share for Aaron Rodgers. But also, he got hurt last week too. He did come back, but he was banged up, was super inefficient when he was the number 1 receiver. Now he has to deal with Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem to be throwing the ball to him. Doesn't even really seem to be throwing the ball all that well this year, somewhat to the surprise of fans, even though this decline was for everyone but Tom Brady seems to be coming.
Well, it's a new offense, new system. I don't think it's aged just yet with Aaron Rodgers.
So
he'll be back.
We'll see. But the injury does scare me a little bit. Devontae Adams is going to take targets away. Golden Tate, as we all, another statistic that I like to throw out here is that wide receiver and tight end targets are not correlated. Only tight ends and running back targets are correlated. So Evan Ingram coming back, I don't think has that much of an impact. I'm more encouraged by the fact that Sterling Shepard is likely not going to come back, and if he does, it's in a very limited capacity with a snap count. So Golden Tate is the number 1 option there. Receiver-wise, obviously Saquon Barkley and Evan Ingram are ahead of him, but even more encouraging, Daniel Jones seems to like him. Last week against the Patriots, the number 1 pass defense in the league, he put up 6 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. I like the volume, and Arizona is a significantly worse defense. I like the matchup. Go Golden Tate here. 3 more questions to go now, and now I actually like these last 3. We're going to some deeper leagues. So if you are looking at guys on the bottom of your bench,
Look out for you in those deep leagues.
guys on the waiver wire, guys on the end of the bench, these questions are for you. Particularly this question, 12-team PPR RB2. Every single one of these guys is the second running back on their team. That says a lot. Actually, in one case, third. 3 guys, this is not a good situation. This must be crazy deep league, a lot of bye weeks, something. I don't even know. I would hate to be in the situation, but listener, this is for you. We picked this question specifically for you. We need to talk about this one. Raheem Mostert, we've talked about the backfield in San Francisco a little bit already. He's going to be in Washington this week. Tony Pollard against Philadelphia, top 10 ranked rush defense, and Ezekiel Elliott in front of him. And Nyheim Hines, kind of the Tariq Cohen guy in Indianapolis, has not lived up to billing this year against Houston. We'll kick it to Amir first. What are you thinking?
Yeah, when I first heard this question, my immediate answer was just play none of them. Seriously. This is a brutal trio right here. Starting with Raheem Mostert, he's the third guy in this backfield. And although they're playing Washington, who is a good matchup, I just feel like you can't play him third running back on this not great offense in San Francisco. They really lean on their defense to win them games. So I'm ruling out Raheem Mostert. And between the other two, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think you can start Tony Pollard right now. The only reason you should really have him on your team is as a handcuff to Ezekiel Elliott. So that by default leaves Nyheim Hines. And since this is a PPR league, he's not a terrible play this week. If Indy goes down big and they got to catch up, they'll be throwing the ball, and he'll definitely get involved in that. He's a great pass-catching back, so look for him to get some passes in the case that Indy falls down or falls behind Houston, and I think that's going to happen. Houston seems to be the better team so far this year, but we'll see. My pick, Nyheim Hines this week.
These boys are hitting on you for really having a deep league, but I think you should be applauded. It's good to have a deep league. You really get to know the NFL. You really get an in-depth look at every team because this is who's on your waiver wire. That's it. This is who you're looking at. Kudos to you. But with that in mind, I think that there's a clear answer to this question, and it's Amir had the right answer. It's Nyheim Hines. His Colts are going up against the Texans. The Texans are the better team, as Amir said there. And I think that if the Colts go down early, they're going to be leaning sort of on that passing game. Nyheim Hines is the guy to go to from the running back position in that passing game. That's why I think you got to go with him. As Amir said, Tony Pollard is really just a backup to Zeke at this point. That's not really the only upside you really have there is touchdown upside. That's not necessarily something that you want to count on. And then Raheem Mostert is the third string there behind Coleman and Breida. My boy Matt Breida, as I like to say. But yeah, I agree with Amir. Gotta go Hines here.
I'm also going to say Nyheim Hines. The one thing that does scare me is that the Colts are coming off a bye week, so Marlon Mack is going to be extra fresh. But I don't think that's going to matter that much. The 2 weeks leading up to the bye week, Nyheim Hines, 6 catches, 39 yards, 4 catches, 46 yards. So not great production there, but that's at least 8.5 points each of the last 2 weeks. And if we're looking at this trio, that's the best you're going to get from all three at a bare minimum. But one thing that is encouraging is that when he put up the 4 for 46 against Kansas City on Sunday night 2 weeks ago in Week 5, that was a completely negative game script for Nyheim Hines.
Yep.
He's effectively a receiver. Marlon Mack's a rusher there. Marlon Mack had 20-plus rushes that game. He still was able to get 5 targets, 4 receptions. It's going to be another shootout and probably a negative game script for the Colts. Amr hit on this before. He, in this sense, is somewhat game script immune. So he's clearly getting more work in the offense. I like Nyheim Hines here just because of all three, he has the most upside to really do. He has the highest floor and the highest upside, where if he puts one in the end zone, you're looking at a 14-point day.
Yeah.
Which is about all you can ask for in this case.
Yeah, especially with these garbage options.
This is tough. I really hope this is this is an RB2 question, so this isn't even a flex, boys.
Oh, man.
Maybe they're very deep wide receiver.
I hope that I hope you're starting like OBJ, DeAndre Hopkins. OBJ's on a bye.
So not him.
So not OBJ. But I hope you're starting like DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough, listener. But you heard it here first. Nyheim Hines over Tony Pollard and Raheem Mostert. We're staying here in San Francisco for a little bit. We're looking at a 10-team standard. So I think our first standard question, looking at a flex position here. This is just to pick one. We have 4 options. Matt Breida in San Francisco against Washington. Sterling Shepard, we highlighted Golden Tate earlier, but Sterling Shepard against Arizona. Austin Eckler, kind of the last man standing, I guess, whatever you want to call it, after Melvin Gordon returned. Yeah. And then Stephon Diggs at Detroit, a tough matchup coming off of Philadelphia for the Vikings. Mike, out of these 4 guys, what are you thinking?
Let's ride the hot hand. I'm going Diggs here. 40-plus points last week. Across all leagues, 3 touchdowns, right, boys?
3 touchdowns.
2 of which are for more than 40 yards, I believe. Huge day for Stephon Diggs. I say he's going to continue. Eckler is an appealing option out there for the Chargers. Shepard may be hurt, and I don't like Breida against the Redskins this week. Obviously, he's the number 2 option there, not number 1 behind Tevin Coleman. So I definitely am going to go Stephon Diggs. The Detroit defense really isn't great. I do think that they'll be sliced and diced by my boy Kirk Cousins.
You know what, Mike?
That's bold. Slicing and dicing with Kirk Cousins?
Yes,
Hey,
he did it last week.
He did do it against Philly.
You know what, Mike? I agree. Give
There
me
we
some.
go. There we
I
go.
agree. Stephon Diggs is my guy this week. He killed it last week, of course, and he's going up against Detroit. Not a stellar defense, and so I think he's going to have a good week. These other 2 guys, Sterling Shepard, Austin Eckler, both have been pretty disappointing in the past couple weeks, especially Eckler. And Sterling's obviously has that injury, so you're going to want to stay away from him. I guess you could look into Matt Breida. Washington's a terrible team. Obviously, the only team that they've beaten is, of course, the Miami Dolphins. And it's a standard league, so running backs do have a slight premium over wide receivers in that case. But I'm still thinking Stephon Diggs, ride the hot hand, go with what you know. He was good for a reason last year. We drafted him high for a reason this year. He was great last week. So I think keep rolling on the Stephon Diggs train. I think he's your guy this week.
Guys, I'm a little annoyed right now. I really thought I was going to have a novel, completely unique opinion. Stephon Diggs. I had a whole speech prepared about why Stephon Diggs was going to be great. Well, he's going to be the best of all these options, I think. We talked about Sterling Shepard. He's going to come in gimpy, so definitely not 100% if he does play. Not going to go there. Breida, second option in that backfield. Austin Eckler is appealing just because Tennessee is among the tops against the rush, so Melvin Gordon's probably not going to have an efficient day, but they are among the bottom of the league against pass-catching running backs. So Austin Eckler does have some appeal, but Stephon Diggs, I don't think last week was all necessarily just the good matchup. I do think part of it was they were trying to force him the ball.
Yep.
He's been very vocal about how upset he's been in Minnesota this season. So has Adam Thielen, and they both reaped the benefits of that the last 2 weeks. Adam Thielen 2 weeks ago, Stephon Diggs last week. It's a tough matchup against Detroit. They have a decent secondary with Darius Slay back there, but I think he'll be shadowing Adam Thielen. With that, in that regard, Stephon Diggs has a shot to boom. Out of all 4 of those guys, and you're looking here at a flex spot. Flex spot is about boom, not about floor. You're looking for upside. Stephon Diggs, I think, certainly has the most upside out of all 3, whereas Austin Eckler might have the highest floor just based on his target share that he's been getting last week disregarded.
Yep.
Final question of the day, and this one's interesting because it has some injury appeal over the last few weeks. Another 12-team full PPR flex spot. Adrian Peterson, big week last week against Miami, but he's going up against San Francisco, the number 1 rush defense in the league. Marquise Brown coming off an injury against Seattle, or Philip Dorsett, also fresh off an injury for the New England Patriots against the New York Jets. Amer, what are you thinking?
All right, well, let's start with Adrian Peterson against San Francisco. Look, he had a great week last week, showed flashes of his MVP season, but as Bryce said, against Miami. Those are throwaway games. You play people against Miami, and then you never see him again, like Frank Gore and Devin Singletary this week.
You gotta play Bills this week. You gotta play the Bills this week.
Once you play him this week, you can chuck him back to the waivers. But in terms of Adrian Peterson, I really don't think you can play him this week. San Francisco has an amazing front 4. All 4 of their defensive linemen are former first-round picks, so you know they're going to bring it. They've shown this year they're one of the best defenses in the NFL, especially against the run in that front 4 and that front 7. So Adrian Peterson's out for me. Between these other 2, Marquise Brown and Philip Dorsett, I guess it depends on kind of what you're going for, but for me, I'm going to go with Philip Dorsett just because Josh Gordon's injured. Dorsett did miss last week, but he's projected to play this week. And without Josh Gordon, it looks like he'll be the number 2 wide receiver in New England, and they're playing against the Jets, who are not a great team. In terms of Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, he's really been a boomer bust guy this season so far, of course. And although Seattle's defense isn't great, I don't think you can bank on him getting you consistent fantasy numbers. So give me Tom Brady's second target over Lamar Jackson's second target. I'm going with Philip Dorsett this week against the Jets.
Yeah, this is a really tough question, actually, because, I mean, you mentioned Dorsett. Dorsett, like, the Jets are a very attractive matchup, but that pass game really hasn't looked good recently. Like, we watched that Giant game together. The Patriots, while they did wind up scoring a lot of points, it didn't really look like their offense was flowing a lot at times. Similar, Marquise Brown is coming off an injury, which makes you question him a little bit, and that Seattle defense is deceptively good. And as you said, Adrian Peterson's going up against a tough front set. But with that, I'm going to go by my logic from before. If you could start a running back that's starting for his team in your flex spot, you got to do it. I think you got to go Adrian Peterson. Throw the front seven aside because that's what AP does. AP throws defenders to the side.
This isn't your dad's Adrian Peterson.
You have to go Adrian Peterson this week. I feel like even though it's stacked against him, he's going to go up against those 49ers, and he's going to play him tough. I don't think Philip Dorsett is really going to be all that valuable going up against the Jets. And Marquise Brown, like we said, is coming off that injury and going up against this tough Seattle defense in Seattle, where they have the 12th man on the field. So I'd watch out for that as well.
And here's precisely why you cannot start Adrian Peterson this week. It was the exact same rationale that I had when I was talking about Austin Eckler against the Titans. The 49ers have that great front seven, so the rushing running back is going to be relatively inefficient. If you have Chris Thompson, start Chris Thompson. The Redskins are going to be playing from behind. Case Keenum doesn't have a big arm. He hits Terry McLaurin fairly frequently. But other than that, he keeps dumping it off to Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson also doesn't run between the tackles, so he's not as susceptible to that front seven. But mostly this is a game script issue here. They don't give up yards, and they're going to play from behind. The Redskins are. Don't play Adrian Peterson, I think. Just my 2 cents.
Just a note on Chris Thompson, he's coming in questionable. He left last week's game.
Yes.
Just if you're gonna think of playing him, you gotta stay on that.
Yes. Maintain vigilance with injuries.
Yep.
And speaking of injuries and maintaining vigilance of injuries, Marquise Brown, Philip Dorsett, we have talked about those injuries so far. A couple updates on their practice statuses. Philip Dorsett was limited but did play in practice on Thursday. Marquise Brown has not participated in practices each of the last 2 days, Thursday or Wednesday.
That's not a good sign.
Not a good sign at all. And with that in mind, I'm going to go Philip Dorsett as well. I do think he's going to play. Josh Gordon is out, making him Tom Brady's second option. Big benefit for me to Philip Dorsett is we talk a lot about guaranteed touches, or at least I talk about guaranteed touches. The 2 weeks before he got injured, he got 9 targets against Buffalo. And last night he played the Jets. He got 7 targets, 6 catches, 53 yards, and a score. Who are they playing this week? The Jets.
New York Jets.
And effectively, it's the exact same defense. And if anything, the offense is better. Sam Darnold's back.
Yep.
So this could be more of a positive game script and could even up those totals from those 7 targets, 6 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown. I am going to lean Philip Dorsett here, albeit cautiously, coming in with an injury, but opportunity will reign supreme, and Philip Dorsett should be your guy this week.
Agreed.
I
Great.
disagree, but so we move on.
C'est la vie, such is life. But thank you all for watching. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Start Sit Show on Between the 20s. For reference, for those of you that have lineup questions, we record this show every Thursday afternoon. So please, please, please send us your questions anytime really before noon Eastern on Thursdays. Please do so either DM us on Twitter, Instagram, send us an email to the Between the 20s email account, or you can even post on and comment on a form of video.
Yep.
Please let that be a
Comment on this video.
We got everything for you up here
Hi
right
at
now.
gmail.com.
Twitter handle, Instagram handle,
Email.
website, YouTube channel. No, you're already here. But the other ones will be up here on screen.
Yep. We have a lot of sources for you. Please DM us, send us your comments. Please comment on the video if you like what you hear. If you disagree with any of us, particularly if you disagree with Mike, please let him know. And with that, thank you all very much for listening, and stay tuned for our newer segments. And next week, we'll go back into Start Sit once again for Week 8.